Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
Cautious drinkers unite. Could it be no more hangovers? Well, if it's true what they say about the humble Korean pear and its liquid gold extract, then let's raise a glass and drink to that. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Two years ago, when Bae Juice was barely off the ground, Tim O'Sullivan already thought of it as liquid gold. And considering the extraordinary growth of the company since then, he could be absolutely right. Bae means pear in Korean, and Tim and his co-founders, Sumin and Liam Gostencnik, have been on a roll since they introduced this Korean pear-based hangover cure into the Australian market. Youth's been on their side, and the power of LinkedIn, Instagram, and all of those influencers have done wonders to spread the word. But it's also been a steep learning curve for this young trio, now paying off as Woolworths backs the product and takes it national. It all started when Tim and his girlfriend, Sumin were on holiday in South Korea, Sumin's home country. And to be honest, Tim was having a very good time, followed by, guess what? Some serious hangovers. That's when he was introduced to the curative effect of Korean pear juice. And the rest, as they say, is history. Tim takes Heather Dawson back to his thinking right then in Korea as the business possibilities in Australia dawned on him.
It was quite amazing. It was so simple for Sumin and her friends to drink this pear juice, but for me it was like this new amazing discovery. And I kept drinking it and I had a really good experience with it in Korea throughout that trip. And when I came back to Melbourne, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find anything really related to hangovers and did lots of research. And I even found some great articles from the CSIRO mentioning that the Korean pear does in fact reduce your hangover severity. So I thought, you know what, with the drinking culture in Australia and such an amazing product in Korea, a really highly populated country, it's a match made in heaven. So from that day on, I just said, right, and we tackled it from that day.
Well, Tim, tell us, what's in it? Or really importantly, does it really work as a hangover cure?
There's actually an enzyme. Shortened is DHM for anyone listening that wants to Google it. It's very long and I definitely can't pronounce it. But it actually speeds up your metabolism of alcohol. They've done lots of research on it. They've used placebos, testing, all sorts of different ways of sort of studying it. And the fact is, when you drink the Korean pear juice, which has this enzyme, it speeds up the metabolism, sort of detoxifies the alcohol. We're actually getting some more research done at the moment, but it's pretty amazing to think just the natural fruit juice can do that. And then the proof was in the pudding, trying it time after time, giving it to my parents, so testing a different age group and demographic. And my dad loves a red wine and he's about 56, so it started working on him. So once everyone started having some great experiences with it, it was just really a sure thing to go for it.
So, Tim, when you decided to bring Bae Juice to Australia, you first of all thought you could produce it domestically, didn't you? But then you changed your mind. So what happened?
I think it was the high volume was one scary thing. I couldn't really find any abundance of it in Australia. And we originally did really want to do it from Korea, but we did search that option. But the great thing about Korea as well is definitely the quality of the product as well as the pricing. We didn't have any original funding. So keeping our unit cost down per cent was just crucial. And the Korea opportunity, the manufacturer offered us a really great price that was doable after we did some analysis.
Now, Tim, I understand the father of Sumin has been very helpful along the way. How important has it been to have someone on the ground in South Korea, with a personal relationship to the business?
Yeah, it was actually a game changer. And I think it's one of the reasons we were able to have the opportunity to find a manufacturer and work with such an amazing Korean pear farm and fruit farm. So Sumin's dad, Do Yan Hwan, he actually helped us source the manufacturer, but also he's owned a number of businesses and he understands the way Koreans do business especially. So he really, really helped us with that introduction and working together with them. He also helped lend us money when we sort of got stuck. So we wanted to place our first order and we realized that we didn't have enough money for it. And again, startup issues and problems is always usually financially. And we were lucky enough for Sumin's dad to actually lend us a large sum of money to make sure we could place quite a large order to make sure we never run out and give us some great opportunities to really sample and give out the product. So he was well and truly influential in our journey. And sometimes you do forget because it's so long ago, or it feels like. But he was crucial, and it's always good having someone there and communicating with him especially.
Well, you also have a terrific relationship with your Korean suppliers. Is it a different way of doing business with them over there to if you were working with an Aussie company?
Potentially. I think I'll go into detail about our manufacturer because they are really amazing. And for me and Sumin, we rolled up to this farm without really any scheduled meeting, wearing shorts and a T-shirt, and we've both got some tattoos, and we were 23 at the time. And we rolled into this meeting saying, a bit of, how you going? We'd love to bring this Bae Juice into our own brand into Australia, and this is why. And I think when they saw our passion, our enthusiasm, we were young, and we actually did have some really great ideas early on, and they actually put the ball in our court. They said, well, if you can go back to Melbourne or Australia and you can build a brand, you can set up your business structure and you can provide us with some marketing collateral, then we're more than willing to work with you. So they sort of put the ball in our court, which I loved, and we met the demands well and truly. Within sort of 6 to 9 months, we had an amazing brand, product, we'd trademark things, we'd done everything. So they were really impressed. So even from day one, we actually pay them in Australian dollars because we explained to them that the fluctuating dollar price is very difficult for us to sort of manage. And they said, don't worry, we'll help work with that. So they set up an Australian bank account. They helped us source cheaper packaging with the boxing. They've just done about everything. And they just love working with us because we're young and we really want to give this a red hot crack. And one of the managing directors there says that we actually remind him of him when he was younger. So it's been an amazing journey, and still till today, they're texting us daily, sending us pictures. They sent us some samples of new ideas before we even asked for them. So we're very fortunate.
Well, I believe in those early days you did a lot of legwork yourselves as well, delivering product door to door and so on. What was that like?
That was crazy. That was like 12-hour days delivering thousands and thousands of sachets of juice across Melbourne. For listeners that are from Melbourne, it's from past Craigieburn to the other side of town, past Brighton. It was hours and hours of driving and speaking to random people that were really wanted to engage with the product and try it, and us reaching out to influencers saying, hey, we're doing the rounds. Do you want to drop off a little care pack for you? And people said yes. And within our first 2 weeks, we had hundreds of 200 people sharing stories of this new Bae Juice. And I think everyone was quite captivated by what is the packaging and the name, and it's from Korea. So whilst it was definitely cost effective, and I was using my mum's car at the time, so it was definitely cost effective. But yeah, that was a great way to do it, and it wasn't planned. So that was the beauty of it as well.
Mazars is an international audit, tax and advisory firm committed to helping clients confidently build and grow their businesses. Experience a new perspective with Mazars. Visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
Now, you mentioned earlier on Sumin's dad helped you get the business off the ground with some funding, but how else have you funded the growth of the business? And, have you encountered difficulties along the way?
Yeah, so it's probably been one of the most stressful parts of the last 24 months, well and truly. It's wanting to tackle every opportunity, but every opportunity has a cost. And unluckily for us, we didn't have any initial funding or capital at all. It was all week-to-week paycheck. So whether I was earning $600, $700, $800 a week, working at a cafe, that money was flushed into Bae Juice. Not just weekly or fortnightly. That's been for about past 12 to 18 months. So we pay our rent, we take the food from the cafe that I part own and I work at, and it's been sacrificing just about every dollar for 18 months. It's saving money up for a photo shoot, saving money up to work with an influencer, saving our paychecks up for the next order. It's been very difficult because we can't tackle new opportunities that we know would be beneficial, or we can't increase our advertising spend when we know that it'll funnel some more money into our account. But it's only been recently, since we've slowly built up our independent retailers and worked really hard online, that we're finally in a position where we're not piling our paycheck anymore and the business is funding itself, which has been one of the more rewarding things lately.
Well, you managed to convince IGA and Foodworks to take Bae Juice, but now you've pulled off a deal to get into, I believe, 900 Woolworths supermarkets around the country, which is brilliant, Tim. So what's been your secret to success in managing to pull off these sorts of contracts?
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking deeply about lately, and just how did we do it sometimes. You have that sort of pinch me moment. But I think tackling such a niche product, whilst it's a larger risk, it has a larger reward. We're not entering the kombucha space or the orange juice space or another yogurt. We're the only Korean pear juice in the Australian market at the moment. And whilst people thought that was risky or it was going to be too hard for you to educate your consumers, it actually benefited us really heavily. So by tackling that risk, the reward was higher. We had more interest. We've grown faster than other brands, even without that funding. And luckily, the buyers saw that it was a trending product. We're sponsoring lots of events next year. We're growing online. We've had some great PR and media lately. So they were sort of seeing the roller coaster that we've been on. And especially through LinkedIn, I think I had 1,000 likes and 60,000 views on my post announcing it. So, people have been really following our journey. And I think all the steps have just led us to Woolworths, and the timing was right, the product was ready, the manufacturers are ready, and all of our branding was on point. So whilst it was all good timing, I do think it was us taking that risk with tackling a new idea and a new concept.
Even so, rapid expansion now to gear up to, supply so many outlets. How are you managing to scale the business with that sort of rapid expansion, Tim?
We've actually got some consultants that help us with our forecasting and our pitching to retailers. That's Christian and George from Thrive Collective. And they've helped us really walk through the difficulties of forecasting and supply chain and ordering and all those sort of things. So whilst we've got about over 20,000 units on the way from Korea now, they're helping us with the logistics of landing in Woolworths DCs and all these other things that are out of my depth, really. Running hospitality venues and launching a brand, you can't just jump into a logistics and supply chain hat that quick. So we've had the help of them now that we've sort of been able to fund ourselves. We've got a digital marketing agency. So we've sort of increased our advertising spend there, and our reach online has been far greater, as well as our returns. So it's just been those small steps. Whilst we did land a large account retail-wise, which did really leapfrog us in that space, it has been small steps. We started with $100, $200, $500, $700 a week we've been putting into our ad spend per week. And we're just growing with it and not being impatient or too cocky with anything. It's okay, let's just put 100 more into it this week, 100 more into it next week. And we've just kind of understood that's the best way to grow, and that it's a bit of a marathon, growing this business, that we're not just going to sprint to the finish line and find success. So it's been with the help of others and us understanding it's a slower process.
Well, it's such a great story, Tim. So what are the biggest lessons do you think you've learned in starting and growing Bae Juice that you can share with other business people listening to you right now?
I think the word outsourcing earlier was the biggest one for me. Like, I've really learnt a lot. So if Bae Juice was to crumble tomorrow, I now know how to import a 22-foot container from Southeast Asia to the doorstep in Melbourne. When I didn't even know how to post a letter to my grandmother. But now I can bring a 22-foot container in from another country. So there's been all these things that I've really wanted to tackle to learn myself, so that whether Bae Juice or other businesses in the future, I've got a really good understanding of things. I do all the social media. I've done the PR. Liam's done most of the sales, but we correspond with each other all the time. So we're really putting a lot of hours into the business. And early days we weren't, and the business wasn't growing. So we did a few days here and there. We're expecting success, and it took a while. Now we work on Bae Juice every day. I give blood, sweat, and tears to it, and it's growing really quickly. So I think it's quite obvious, and it's so cliche. It's frustrating that hard work pays off, but we weren't doing much. The business was stagnant, and now we're doing crazy hours, and the business is booming. So I think that's a pretty obvious recipe to the success, and is all the hours we're putting in and just focusing on growing it every day. So great, we got Woolworths. How do we get all the Dan Murphy's store? After Dan Murphy's, how are we going to bolster our independence even more? How are we going to go to the UK? We're speaking to someone in the UK. So it's always upskilling ourselves, what's next, and continue to putting hours and hard work into the business.
Wow. Well, there's lessons for you. So Bae Juice in, say, 3 years' time, do you think you'll be overseas by then?
Yes, I'm pretty confident. If it can work here and, such a spread population across Australia, hopefully it can work in a nice, dense, active, exciting city like a London or even pushing for the US. So that's definitely our goal.
That was Bae Juice co-founder Tim O'Sullivan. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
SoundCartel.
This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.